It is not yet time to start panicking about Jalen Hurts throwing interceptions in practice. I'll tell you why coming up on today's edition of the Locked On Eagles podcast.
You are Locked On Eagles, your daily Philadelphia Eagles podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thanks so much for making Locked On Eagles your first listen each and every day, and thanks for making the Locked On Podcast Network the #1 sports podcast network. I'm your host, Louis DiBiase. Today's episode is brought to you by KALSHI. For a limited time, download the KALSHI app, use our code LOCKEDON to get $10 when you trade $10. On today's episode, we are going to recap the Eagles' open practice from Tuesday night at Lincoln Financial Field. I'm going to tell you why Jalen Hurts throwing a lot of interceptions in training camp is not as big of a deal as some in the media are making it out to be. I even think there's some positives to that result. Plus, later on in the show, other takeaways from that practice. Riq Woolen continues to shine on defense. Makai Lemon made his debut in padded practice to fans. All that and more coming your way on this Wednesday edition of Locked On Eagles. But I do want to start with Jalen Hurts. I feel like there are a lot of people right now, I don't want to say panicking that Jalen Hurts has thrown a good amount of interceptions in camp, but it almost feels like there's a debate going back and forth between some media members, fans, about whether this is cause for concern, whether this is actually a good thing, what the right approach should be for the Eagles offense this year, if they do turn the football over more than in 2024 and in 2025. My personal view on this is that more interceptions right now at this point of the season, through training camp and the preseason, Jalen Hurts throwing picks right now, when you contextualize the situation he's in, what they are trying to accomplish this year on that side of the ball, I don't think it's a bad thing at all. In fact, I'm kind of encouraged by hearing Jalen Hurts has thrown more interceptions in practice this year than last summer or the summer before. I'm encouraged that Jalen Hurts is trying to be more aggressive, that Jalen is willing to take more risks over the middle of the field. Now, not all interceptions are created equal. And so right now, just like I will be in the regular season, there are certain picks that I don't feel good about. There was a play yesterday in practice where Jalen Hurts was late getting through his progressions to find Devontae Smith open along the right sideline. He threw the football anyway. It was late. There wasn't a lot of zip on the football. Riq Woolen, unbelievable play for him, though. I'll just give him credit. The click and close to flip his hips and get to the outside shoulder of Devontae Smith and jump that ball for a pick six. Unbelievable play by a corner that, you know, most guys, when you're throwing to your receiver, aren't being covered by a 6'4 corner that is also a 4.26 speed cornerback. But Jalen Hurts should not have thrown that ball. It was late in the play. It was not a great ball. The coverage, like Devontae was open, but he wasn't wide open. That's the kind of throw you have to get out pretty quick with anticipation. That's a bad interception. If he's throwing 15 of those during the regular season, that's going to be a problem. But some other interceptions, if he's trying to make a play down the field on a deep ball, if he's trying to zip it in over the middle in a tight window throw, you know, what's the situation? Are the Eagles down? Are they losing? Are they trying to come back? Is he trying to make a play? Is he trying to be aggressive? Is the defense struggling? Is it third and long? Is it an interception where, again, it's down the field, so it's kind of like a long punt? Those kind of picks, again, depending on the situation, you have to contextualize each interception. They're not all created equal. Some of those I might be willing to live with this year in the name of trying to make plays. Because Jalen Hurts in the past has turned those aggressive throws not just into interceptions, but into touchdowns as well. Those plays can also become huge positives. And so there's a balancing act that the Eagles have to find. I feel like last year, they went way too far the opposite direction, where they were so terrified to turn the football over that they never made plays at all. There were games where they would go entire halves not moving the football, not only not scoring, but not even getting first downs because they were so petrified of not ending the play in a punt. right? Putting the defense in a bad situation. I would make the argument this Eagles defense is so good that you can afford to get away with some more mistakes on offense because this defense can bail you out. So I want this Eagles offense being more aggressive than last year, taking more risks. There's two ends of the spectrum, and I think if you're on the opposite end of either side, if you're on the radical left or the radical right, and I feel like this is kind of a life metaphor as well for like politics too. If you're too far one way or the other, that's probably not a good thing. I also don't want Jalen Hurts throwing, 15 to 16 interceptions this year and they're being careless, reckless, even if they're in the lead or if they have good, field position and he's just trying these crazy throws that are not there. It's in double coverage. He's running around. He won't let the play die. Kind of like Carson Wentz back in the day, 2020 Carson Wentz, or, Jameis Winston, Will Levis, where they're just trying all this crazy stuff. It's very sloppy. The look is not there. But look, if it's a 50-50 ball and, there is a play there to be made and you like the look, it's kind of like in the NBA. If the three-pointer is there, if it doesn't go in, okay, they're not all going to go in. But, hey, it's a good look. I remember playing basketball back in the day, and I used to say to my teammates, like, good look. The next one's going to go in. Like, we want you taking those shots. Same thing with Jalen Hurts. I want him taking more shots than he did in 2025. We all complained all year in 2025 that he wasn't throwing over the middle of the field more, and now he is. And some of those plays, again, there's more traffic in the middle of the field. Some of those plays are more prone for mistakes, for turnovers, but you can also find big chunk yardage through that part of the field, and I want the Eagles living there more than they have in the past. So I feel like it's a balancing act. Not all interceptions are created equal, and personally, I believe in Jalen Hurts to find that equilibrium. I think he's done a really good job outside of last year where he took it way too far with the conservative side, and maybe 2023 was a little bit too aggressive, right? He had 15 interceptions that year. I feel like most years of Jalen Hurts' football career, even going back to college, he has been so good. One of his strengths has been striking that balance of knowing when to pick and choose your spots, right? When to be aggressive and when to protect the football. I think 2022 is the perfect example of that, where, he has 22 touchdowns and just 6 interceptions, an MVP finalist, the runner-up to Patrick Mahomes. He was super aggressive that year, but look at only 6 interceptions. Like, he wasn't turning the ball over either. Even in 2024, I know they weren't passing the ball nearly as much as years past, but the offense still was finding a way to pick and choose their spots in the passing game with when to be aggressive. You look at that New Orleans game week 3. You look at the Jacksonville game, both Dallas matchups against Pittsburgh. Jalen, normally that's been one of his strong suits, is balancing being aggressive, but also knowing, hey, we're a run-first team with a really good defense. We should rely on that. Let's not try to do too much. We don't need to play hero ball every play. We don't need to be Batman when we can just be Robin, because Batman is Saquon Barkley. Batman is our offensive line. Batman is Vic Fangio in this all-star defense. So I feel like there's a balancing act. You don't want to be probably what you were in 2023, but I don't think you want to be who you were in 2025 either. I think the perfect balance, hopefully the run game bounces back and allows you to find explosives on the ground too, but the passing game needs to pick up their end of the bargain too. You don't want to just be a one-trick pony. You don't want to be one-dimensional. I think that's what 2022 was. They ran the ball really well, but they also passed the ball really well. They were aggressive in both areas without being sloppy and mistake-prone. I think 2022 and 2024, that's because those teams, it's not like they were throwing 40 times a game and Jalen had 40 touchdowns. Like, they were still a run-first team. They still committed to that run the ball, win with defense kind of approach, but the passing game gave you aggressive, explosive plays a lot more often than you saw last year. So I'm not really panicking about it right now. You also have to contextualize things by saying this is a brand new offense. Jalen's doing a lot of things he's not used to that used to be weak points in his career. It's a lot of new personnel, some of which he hasn't gotten to practice a lot with, like Mekhi Lemon. Yesterday's open practice was like the first time that Jalen got to actually use Mekhi Lemon in 11-on-11s with shoulder pads on. So I don't think the sky is falling. They're trying things out right now. Kevin O'Connell said it in a podcast interview with Ryan Fitzpatrick, the Minnesota Vikings coach, that we want quarterbacks throwing picks in the summer, because how do we know week 12 that this 3rd and 12 play over the middle to Justin Jefferson will work in this tight window against this certain kind of coverage if we don't try it now in July or August? How are we going to know it's going to work in November and December and January if it's not attempted in July and August? So you don't want to play reckless. You don't want to play scared. I know it's not sexy to, not say it's black or white, but I think the middle ground, the gray, is probably the correct answer with this and most things in football. So I'm not panicking yet. Now, again, during the regular season, if Jalen is just not adjusting to the scheme well, he is not going through progressions fast enough, and that is why he's throwing a lot of interceptions. If he's been really inaccurate with the football, if he is slow to, again, get through things, if he's forcing the issue too much in situations where he shouldn't, if he's pressing like 2020 Carson Wentz, those interceptions will be concerning. But even though 2023 was a little bit too far the other end because he threw 15 picks, I really liked what I saw from the first half of that season with Jalen Hurts. Yeah, he was throwing more picks than normal, but he kind of had to be more aggressive because the defense wasn't as good, and the run game was a little bit more inconsistent than in years past. And I thought Jalen was carrying that football team with his aggressive play. He was an MVP favorite 11 games into the year after they beat the Bills and they were 10-1. Jalen was playing really aggressive. And so those kind of interceptions, a lot of those from 2023, I was okay with. So they're not all created equal. You're not going to get that take from a lot of beat reporters and a lot of media because, again, they want it to be black or white. But I think you have to contextualize it. And if the interceptions go up this year a little bit, but hey, so do the passing touchdowns, so do the explosive plays, and the offense is cooking and they're winning games, then I'm okay with it. I can live with that. You get that from Patrick Mahomes. You get that from Josh Allen. I want to be aggressive. I don't want to be the offense from 2025. I don't want it to be every down your life is on the line like Carson Wentz used to live by. But again, there's a middle ground there. I do want to come up with a question coming up next right here on the Locked On Eagles podcast, though. If the Eagles are turning the ball over a little bit more on offense, if Jalen isn't, growing into this scheme right away off the jump, the first month or two of the regular season, how long does it take Nick Sirianni to say, kind of like in 2024, screw it, let's scrap all of this, we're going back to my offense? Does he go back to that at all this year? When should he, if at all? We'll talk about it next right here on the Locked On Eagles podcast. Today's episode of the Locked On Eagles podcast is brought to you by KALSHI. Before the season even kicks off, everybody is making predictions. Who wins the division? Who makes the playoffs? Who's lifting the trophy at the end of the year? On KALSHI, America's #1 prediction market platform, you can trade those predictions in a live market right now. Should the Philadelphia Eagles be a championship contender this year? If you think they're going to win the Super Bowl, right now, if you predict $10, you can get $187.52 on a payout. They are trading at 5% right now as championship favorites, top 10 in the league, meaning a $100 trade. So, that's $10 to get $187. And then let's say we did $100 here. That's $1,875.29 on a trade over at KALSHI. You're trading against peers in a live market, meaning there's no house, and as the probability changes, you can buy in and out of your position. Trade the draft pick, the game, and more on KALSHI. Download the app and use the code LOCKEDON to get $10 when you trade $10. KALSHI, KALSHI, trade on anything. 18 plus only. Restrictions and eligibility requirements apply. Event contract trading involves risk and may not be suitable for all investors. KALSHI products are not available in all jurisdictions. Prices, values, and available markets may differ from those mentioned. For more information, see kalshi.com/regulatory. And guys, today's show, we are also presented by Square. Behind so many of the local businesses that people visit every day is Square, a platform designed to help businesses sell, manage, and grow. Whether it's a neighborhood coffee shop, a packed sports bar on game day, or your favorite restaurant, Square brings payments, banking, and more together in one connected system. It helps business owners spend less time managing technology and more time focusing on their customers. Square isn't just a payment processor, it's a complete business platform built to simplify the day-to-day, from accepting every major payment method to managing inventory and helping business access their earnings faster. Square gives owners the tools they need to run their business with confidence. If you're starting a business or running one that deserves better tools, Square helps you sell, manage, and grow without slowing down. Right now, you can get up to $200 off Square hardware at square.com/go/LockedOnNFL. That's Square, SQUARE.com/go/LockedOnNFL. Run your business smarter with Square. Get started today. Thank you so much for making Locked On Eagles your first listen each and every day. We are continuing to recap yesterday night's open practice at Lincoln Financial Field, really focusing on Jalen Hurts and his aggressive mindset, throwing more interceptions this summer than maybe even the last two training camps combined. He had 2 picks yesterday, both from my guy, Riq Woolen, who had a dominant practice. He is killing it. Joint practices, he was a star against the Patriots. That second practice, he killed it in front of 45,000 fans yesterday at the Linc, which is crazy that many people showed up. The Eagles fans are the best in the league. Riq Woolen's been dominant. In those Jalen Hurts interceptions, though, have some people concerned, have some people questioning what should be the right approach for the offense this year, and if he throws those picks during the regular season, what do they do? Like, do they continue this new scheme with Sean Mannion? Do they kind of scrap it like they did in 2024, 4 weeks into the season with Kellen Moore, and say, no, we're going to run the football. We're going to be conservative again. We're going to kind of put a leash. What did Jalen say after the NFC title in 2024? The straitjacket, right? They finally took the straitjacket off of me. Do they put the straitjacket back on Jalen Hurts? What should they do if early on in the year he's throwing a lot of interceptions? It kind of looks like it did the first 4 weeks of 2024, where they are turning the ball over and it's kind of a roller coaster ride on offense. For me, I think throwing interceptions again doesn't mean the offense is struggling. I don't think those things are, they can both be exclusive, but they could mean the same thing. So again, you have to contextualize, okay, well, is he throwing a lot of interceptions? Or maybe not a lot. He's throwing more interceptions than normal, but they're also creating a lot more explosive plays on offense. Like, they are moving the ball. They're scoring a lot of points. If they're still winning games and the defense looks great, the run game is back on track, but the offense is playing aggressive through the air. And Jalen, yeah, maybe he's messing up a little bit more, but he's also creating more. It looks more like 2022 in 2023 than it did in 2024 and 2025. I'm okay with that, going through those growing pains, and hope he becomes more efficient as the year goes on and he gets used to this scheme. I want to be a lot more patient this year than 2024. I would continue to go with it. As long as they're winning games, the defense looks good, the run game is working, and the passing game is giving you points. They're giving you explosive plays. Look, we have to find out if Jalen Hurts can play this style of football long term. Before the Eagles give him another contract extension, you got to be able to find out if he can do this. And I understand why they did it in 2024. They were in a win-now window, and it won them a championship. That decision from Nick Sirianni is one of the most important decisions in franchise history. But this year is a little bit different. They're still Super Bowl contenders and should be trying to win football games. And that's Nick Sirianni's job, right, is to think about 2026. Howie Roseman's job is to think about 2027 and beyond. So Nick has to do what it takes to win football games. But if they're winning games, you have to think about the long-term objective too. And for me, I don't think you should waver. I think you should let this offense grow. You should let this new passing attack, this new scheme, work through the kinks during the regular season. If it's, halfway through the year and those issues haven't stopped and it's costing you football games, okay, well, that's a different story. Then you should change things up and maybe go back to what you were doing. But I think if they're moving the football and maybe there's more interceptions than last year, but again, they're still winning games, I don't know. I wouldn't want to turn away from that. If they go from the number one turnover-free team in football, you look at their turnover ratio last year, like the best team in the league in that department. If they go from 1 to 32, okay, obviously change things up. If they go from the top tier of the league to the bottom tier, yes, then you have to change things up. But if they go from like the number one most, turnover-free offense in the league like last year to, I don't know, number 10 or number 12, if they're still in the top half, but the other offensive numbers are going up, then no, I wouldn't change anything. So again, it depends on the situation. I would give it at least the first half of the year as long as it's not really hurting you. Maybe if the run game is historically great again, okay, yeah. In the passing game, you're a little bit more conservative because you're getting those explosives from the ground. But I don't want this offense to rely on just one part of their game. I want both to do the heavy lifting, the run game and the pass game. Yes, the run game will be featured. It's going to be the thing you use the most, you lean on the most, but I don't want it to be this like 90-10, 80-20 split of responsibility. I would like it to be 60-40 or even like 65-35. Even that 2024 Eagles offense, again, like I said earlier, they didn't throw the football a whole lot, but when they did, like they were moving the ball. They were creating explosives. So I would only throw things out the window if it's like, 8 games into the year and the Eagles are 3-5 or 4-4, and it's kind of looking like it did in 2018 to in 2019. Then, okay, I would understand a change in the approach, but I think we have to work through this, and I think that's what they're doing right now. Again, it's only a couple months into this process of having a brand new passing attack with a brand new play caller and brand new weapons, and Jalen Hurts he's working through it. I like hearing that he's trying things. I like hearing that he's being aggressive. Some of those picks are not good. The 2 interceptions yesterday, I feel like were not great decisions and not great throws, but other picks that I've heard about in practice, I'm okay with. So we'll see what happens. But for me, I'm all in on this. I'm completely bought in, and a lot of it is because I believe in Sean Mannion as a play caller. I believe that Sean Mannion can be the great equalizer that can find a way to get those explosives out of Jalen Hurts again without also bringing along the mistakes and the turnovers. I believe his scheme can help generate easy ways to get those explosive, aggressive plays back without having it be an attempt over the middle and triple coverage. I think this scheme is going to help create good looks for Jalen like they had in 2022 with Shane Steichen and even the first half of 2023. So that's part of why I believe and I want them to be more aggressive, because I think Sean Mannion's scheme is going to help them get that without turning the ball over. It's not all going to be personnel dependent. A lot of it's going to be about the scheme as well. And let me tell you, that open practice yesterday showed us a lot of exciting things about this offensive playbook. We'll talk about it next right here on the Locked On Eagles podcast. Today's episode of the Locked On Eagles podcast, we are brought to you today by Gametime. There are more live events now worth seeing than ever. Games, concerts, comedy shows, festivals. The hard part usually isn't deciding what you want to attend. It's actually getting the tickets. Between long wait times, confusing checkout processes, and surprise fees, buying tickets can sometimes feel harder than it should. That's why so many fans are turning to Gametime. The app is built to make buying tickets simple, with upfront pricing, seat views before you buy, and exclusive savings opportunities that help you get to the events that you want without the usual hassle. I just went to a concert in Colorado thanks to Gametime, and the view was unbelievable. The price was great. There were no surprises at checkout or when we got to our seats. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets to every type of event with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use our code LOCKEDON for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, redeem the code LOCKEDON, LOCKEDON, for $20 off. Download the Gametime app today. All right, Eagles fans, wrapping up this Wednesday edition of Locked On Eagles. Thanks so much for making us your first listen each and every day. Make sure your second listen of the day is the Locked On Fantasy Football Podcast with my guys, Michael Fabiano and Marcus Mosher. 5 days a week, Monday through Friday. You can find it. Get ready for your draft. Get ready to set your lineup with the fantasy football guys over at Locked On Fantasy, Michael Fabiano and Marcus Mosher. You can find them on YouTube or wherever you listen to Locked On Eagles. So, A lot of people are debating about Jalen Hurts and his interceptions he's been throwing in training camp. He had 2 of them during the open practice. Again, 45,000 people got to see it. But for me, I don't know, like some reporters, some fans were more concerned about yesterday's practice. I came away from that practice being more excited about this offense. Like, yeah, there were a couple bad turnovers from Jalen. He's got to clean those ones up. Like when he's late in his progression, if he's forcing it into a really tight window that where the ball is just like, it's not there. That's not the look. If it's 1st and 10 and you're up by 3, you're up by multiple scores, that's not the play to make. You got to find that balance, right? But some of the aggressive plays they made, some of the explosives they created last night on offense got me really fired up. I feel like this offense is making a lot of progress. There was a touchdown from Makai Lemon, his first of training camp, that was wide open, and it might have been a coverage break from the defense, a miscommunication. But I also think Sean Mannion really made the defense think and got them kind of tripped up with some creativity. He put Makai Lemon, a receiver, in the backfield and had him run a wheel route. Like, that's a way to get a really awesome mismatch against a linebacker or a safety, maybe even an edge rusher, depending on what kind of coverage the defense is in. Using a guy like Makai Lemon, who is so good after the catch. That's a versatile player that can line up on the outside in the slot. He can line up in the backfield, right? He has this very versatile skill set. Using him as that kind of gadgety player, that is why Howie Roseman drafted him. It's for that kind of play, to use him in the backfield off of a wheel route. Jalen Hurts had an unbelievable throw. And again, this is like the good example of when being aggressive works out. It was a wheel route down the right sidelines to Saquon Barkley. There are 2 defenders in front of Saquon. There's one over top as well, but there is a window in there. If you thread the needle, if you put that ball high and outside on the right side of the sidelines, or I should say of the end zone, Saquon's the only one that can get that. And look, that's a tough pass to make, but Jalen's one of the most accurate deep ball throwers in the league, and he put it on the money, dropped it in a bucket. Like he ran over and just dropped it right into Saquon's hands for a touchdown. That kind of throw, Jalen is really good at making. That was really exciting. There was another awesome throw. Again, tight coverage. Reek Woolen is right on Devontae Smith's back hip, stride for stride. He is there in coverage, but Jalen puts it far outside, only where Devontae Smith, a stretching Devontae, can make that catch. And he made it, 20 yards downfield over the middle of the football field. I think that would have been a touchdown in a real game. Those are the kind of plays that I love hearing about. I love seeing on tape that Jalen is making. He's being aggressive. Sean Mannion is dialing things up to get this passing attack to really hold their end of the bargain on offense. It's not just all about the run game. And so I thought there were a lot of exciting things about yesterday's practice. There was another really nice throw where Jalen Hurts gets pressured on the blind side from Nolan Smith, rolls to his right, gets outside the pocket on the run, throws a nice 10-yard ball to Devontae Smith, which probably would have been a first down in a game or would have set up a pretty easy second or third and manageable. He hit Dontavian Wicks over the middle of the field for a first down. I actually came away from that practice feeling more positive than negative about the offense. And Reek Woolen, yeah, those picks are from Jalen Hurts, but that got me even more excited about one of my favorite players in the league being on this football team. I mean, to see that interception, it was a bad throw from Jalen. It was late, but Reek Woolen covering Devontae Smith one-on-one. So if you think about the kind of play that was, Reek Woolen's hips are facing inside. So he is giving Devontae Smith outside leverage. Like he's giving Devontae the sideline, right? And when Jalen gets that ball out, Reek Woolen's hips are completely facing the inside, and Devontae is running an out route. And Reek Woolen, as the ball is out, he plants his back foot, like it's right off his back pedal. The click and close to see him plant that back foot, be athletic enough to so smoothly, seamlessly transition into the close part of that play, flipping his hips, getting downfield, and jumping that route for a guy that's that tall at 6'4", but he runs a 4.26 and has that kind of wingspan. It is going to be so hard in those tight situations where the player isn't wide open, because Riq Woolen can get absolutely burned from time to time, but if he is just even remotely in the area, if he has just semi-tight coverage, he can make those kind of plays that a lot of other corners cannot make because of the size, because of the wingspan, because of the speed. That's 2 pick sixes for Riq Woolen in 2 weeks. One on Drake May, one on Jalen Hurts. It's against these really good quarterbacks that have been in the last 2 Super Bowls. The defense, like, making plays also, I mean, that's not always a bad thing, people. Like, it's the Eagles' defense, and it's a really good one. That's the thing you have to contextualize, too, about Jalen Hurts is, like, he's also going up against a top 3 defense in the league every single week, every day. He's trying to learn this new offense, this new play caller, these new weapons, going up against a defense that 2 years ago, not even 2 years ago, had a historic performance in the Super Bowl to end the Chiefs dynasty. So, I don't know. I'm really excited about what I saw yesterday, and I think things are looking up for the Eagles in 2026. Let me know what you think. Hit us up on X at DiBiase, or at Locked On Birds. Until tomorrow, thanks so much for making Locked On Eagles your first listen each and every day. Thanks so much for downloading, watching, and listening, and let's go Birds. Fly, Eagles, fly.